Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 2nd in the year 2021, and welcome to another Tuesday with Thom. Tuesday with Thom, of course, is brought to you by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl customizes solutions to issues of leadership, access and inclusion, economic development, and communications. Best Girl creates the solutions that fit your need. Okay, today we've got our roundtable guests, Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker are here. And our G-list guest, and a very special guest she is Dr. Joyce Gilly-Gossam. Joyce is the current president of Impact 100 of Northwest Florida. The mission of Impact 100 of Northwest Florida is to financially support nonprofit organizations in Northwest Florida by empowering women as philanthropists and by leveraging the talents of women to be a positive force for good in their communities. Since its creation in 2012, Impact 100 Northwest Florida has donated $3.2 million to nonprofits in Northwest Florida, and I'm looking forward to having that discussion. Okay, and now for something that is not positive, something that actually is a little difficult to do, but it's something that we all have to deal with. Big Emmett is gone. I don't know any other way to say it. Big Emmett is gone. Big Emmett was my brother-in-law for the greater part of the last 46 years. He passed away on Saturday, January 30th from cancer. The call came at 7:44 on Saturday evening. It was one of those phone calls that seems odd for the time of day for whatever reason. And when my phone started its familiar chime and I looked down to see my sister's name, I knew something was up. I knew something was wrong. Initially, I thought it was my dad. My dad's 95 years old, and I'm always fearful of getting that call in the middle of the night about him. Matter of fact, when I go to bed, I never have my phone far away from me. Just the fear that I may get a call regarding him and his health. But it was my younger sister, and her voice had a gravity to it. Something was up. I knew something was up. Something was wrong. So I waited. I waited while she worked around to getting what it was she had called about. Before long, she said, Big Emmett had passed. Damn. I knew he was sick. Damn was the word that spilled immediately from my mouth because Big Emmett was gone. He went peacefully with my older sister by his side, the love of his life. Emmett was stage 4, but he was Big Emmett. My dad is 95, and I could have reasonably expected the call to be about him. I have another brother-in-law with cancer as well, but not Big Emmett. It will take some getting used to. I don't know anybody who didn't like him. I never heard anyone say anything bad about him. I've called a couple of people who knew him from college and his marriage to my sister, and their reaction was pretty much like mine. Damn. He was solid. That was my dad's description of him. Solid. Someone you could count on. Someone who gave comfort to others. After my mom passed and my dad started living alone, Emmett called him every morning. Every morning on his way to work, Emmett would call my dad just to check on him. If Daddy didn't answer for whatever reason, Emmett drove to his house. If I came into town to visit my dad, Emmett always came over, and he, Daddy, and I would have big laughs about our lives and our family. Why was he called Big Emmett? Yes, it's true. He was a big man, 6'8", a former athlete, and he had a son named Little Emmett. But that wasn't why I called him Big Emmett. Oh, yeah, he was smart, but he wasn't flashy. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't a big shot. He wasn't on television. He didn't write books. He was Big Emmett because he was a big man in terms of being, as my dad said, solid. Solid in terms of caring for others. Solid in terms of caring for his family. Solid in terms of caring for my dad like it was his dad, which my daddy became to him. He was always there, whether to talk and laugh, check on Daddy, be a good father, a good grandfather, and to be a brother to me. I will miss him. I'll always love him. Big Emmett. He was solid as a rock. Okay, let me move on to my two roundtable guests, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards, of course, is out of Birmingham. She is, I call Barbara a socialite, and I mean that in a very positive sense. Very much so. Barbara, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing well, thank you. And I first offer my condolences to you and the family in the loss of Emmett. I've heard about it from one of his former teammates at Auburn who contacted me, and that was one of the first things he said. He said he was a good man. So he will be missed by many. And again, my prayers and thoughts are with you all. I'm sorry.
He was solid.
Yes.
My dad described him as being solid, and I think that's probably the best.
Absolutely. Otherwise, Tom,
what's happening in your world today, Barbara?
Gearing up for my birthday. I am this month is my birthday month, so I'm sort of looking forward to celebrating pandemic style. I don't know what that's going to be yet, so nothing big and glamorous, but some type of small celebration. And this is the big 64 for me, so I'm actually going to be celebrating throughout the year, coming up on my 65th birthday. So other than that, I've been following all the coaching changes down at Auburn. We talked about last week whether we thought maybe Rodney Gardner or someone would be coming back as the defensive line coach at Auburn, and that wasn't the case. They brought in someone, Nick Eason, who has some NFL experience. And so looking forward to seeing what that's going to do for the Auburn staff. But it seems like they've got a solid staff now. So with National Signing Day coming up this week, hopefully that will have some good impacts on who all they get a chance to bring in for our Auburn Tigers. So that's pretty much it for me this week.
Okay, well let me move over to Michael Walker. Michael is the president of the Walker Agency, a full-service insurance brokerage. Michael hails out of Atlanta. Michael, what is happening in your world?
Well, good morning, Tom. First of all, I want to offer my condolences to you and your family as well on the loss of Emmett. I, too, was at Auburn when Emmett was there, and I've known Emmett. And your word of your father, he was solid. Always enjoyed being around Emmett. And, I remember the basketball team we had in Birmingham that Emmett and Reese played with us, you and I and myself, and Darkers and a bunch of other guys. We had good times doing that. So Emmett will certainly be missed. And again, sorry for your loss. Thank you. Barbara, I want to say happy birthday to you. You have a birthday coming up month of February.
Yes.
So congratulations. What day is it?
It's the 13th.
The 13th. Okay. You missed Valentine's Day by one day. What's up with that?
One day. I told my parents I was their Valentine's gift for that year, so I had to come a little bit early.
I hear you. Well, Tom, you asked what's up in my world. Normally during this time I bring about some information on healthcare, but this particular day I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Over the weekend, there was an article that appeared in Alabama.com. It was entitled "Tommy Tuberville, What Have You Done Now?" And Tommy Tuberville is known as the Auburn coach. It's ironic that he coached at Ole Miss before coming to Auburn, and I think he got started in Miami. After Auburn, he coached at Texas Tech and the University of Cincinnati. However, whenever he does something, he's in the news, he's known as the Auburn coach. And most recently, that hasn't necessarily been very flattering. As you know, we talked about when he was running for senator, he was at a press conference and he didn't understand what the voting rights was all about. Had no idea, no clue. Well, apparently, he has no clue about being a senator. He has on an occasion said that he planned on using his office to raise money. Well, everyone knows that you cannot use a Senate or congressional office to fundraise. That's against the law. Nobody told Senator Tommy Tuberville. Well, this article that appeared, it talked about the insurrection. you know, we had this insurrection up in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th. Well, it turns out the day before, the junior senator from Alabama was over at the Trump Hotel meeting with several people of Trump's inner circle, including Michael Flynn, for one, Rudy Giuliani, Eric, no, not Eric, but Donald Trump and Junior and Eric Trump was there, as well as Donald. And it seemed like that they were having a meeting regarding decertifying the election with President Joe Biden and planning some other things. Well, the next day, the insurrection took place. And as you all will recall, during the insurrection, there were several reports that the president called over to the Capitol asking for Tommy Tuberville. There's also a report that Rudy Giuliani called over asking for Tommy Tuberville, asking him to delay the vote on certifying. Now, the funny thing about this is that a reporter contacted Tuberville and asked him, did he meet with Donald Trump and his inner circle the night before the insurrection? And Senator Tuberville said no. Well, the bad thing about that is that there were several people that took pictures with Tuberville at the Trump Hotel and talked about being at the Trump Hotel with the Auburn coach and having their picture taken with him. So
somebody's got to tell these guys that there's video today and that everybody's got a camera. And so you can't deny things that are obvious. Yeah.
Well, Thom, and not only that, if you're the former head coach of Auburn University who beat Alabama 6 years in a row, you just can't go walking around doing stuff like that because everybody's going to know who you are and they're going to want to take pictures with you.
Well, I think when your election, when the polls close at 7 and they can call your election by 7:30, I guess you just feel like you can do whatever you want to do, and that's on the voters, you know.
Well, yeah,
that's on the voters.
You know,
it is.
And you think about that. Excuse me, Barbara. You think about that. The people that elected Tuberville to office, and you look at all of this stuff, that tells you something. That's not much unlike the Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene here in Georgia, who is going around and saying all the stuff. And you think about the district that elected her. So I don't know what we're coming to. Barbara, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, you know, it makes you ashamed to say you're a resident of the state of Alabama, but people like Tommy Tuberville up there in D.C. representing our state. But I can't take any credit for him being there, because I certainly didn't vote for him. But yeah, I'm you know, like you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is very similar over in Georgia. They're both doing some very stupid things right now. So
the price
I don't know what this.
It's the price you pay for an endorsement from certain people.
Yes.
You have to then become well, I'm not going to say that word on this show, but yeah, you give up all your self-respect, and
absolutely,
that's not something that is cool, I guess, in my book. Hey, just one quick question for you guys. One little short answer. I saw where Auburn is. What are they recruiting? What's their recruiting ranking, Michael? Did they fall from losing Malzahn and that whole recruiting cycle?
Well, I don't know if they fell from losing Malzahn as much as they were already in the 40s anyway before he left. So It wasn't that far to go considering Auburn standards. But the latest report I saw here recently is that they're up to number 20, I think, now.
Okay, good.
Right.
Well,
I think they actually moved up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara. You got some more?
No, I was just going to say, I read yesterday they've actually moved up in recruiting status as a result of some of the signees this past weekend. So they seem to be improving.
Well, I think they're working hard at it, and hopefully, you know, coming in as late as they did, it's tough, but you know, that can be a bonding thing with those young men who were there and the young men who are coming. So we'll have to see. Let me get to let's get to our Best Girl sponsorship, and then we'll get back with our G-List guests. Today's show is sponsored by Best Girl Inc. What is Best Girl? Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Our clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. We have a team of consultants led by Joyce Gilly Gossam and Miss Emily Hedrick, and they partner with business and education business clients to promote organizational effectiveness and education, motivation, and leadership. Our customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communications, executive coaching, fundraising, and some economic development. So let me add to that, and we have to update that, and I'll have to say this on the show so that the team, we can put this in our little cap and update this. But we're led by a team of consultants led by Joyce Gilly Gossam and Emily. And our newest person to join the team is Sean Jones. So we will definitely update our message here. So let's move on to the G list. The G list is where everybody is a star. You know, Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G list. So our guest today is Dr. Joyce Gilly Gossam. And yes, we are related. Joyce is the president of Impact Florida, Impact 100 Northwest Florida. Impact 100 Northwest Florida leverages the talents of women to be a positive force for good in its communities. And I'm just going to say this before I get to it. Since its creation in 2012, Impact 100 Northwest Florida has donated $3.2 million to nonprofits throughout the communities they serve. This isn't government money. This isn't corporate money. This is money the women individually put up to make this positive impact in the community. They're not talking the talk. Well, they do talk the talk, but they also walk the walk. So, Joyce, welcome this morning.
Good morning, Thom.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
I just asked you how you were about an hour ago, so now I'm asking you how you are again.
You did. It's okay.
All right, so let's talk about Impact 100. And I know that you had 2 or 3 points you wanted to make. So why don't we go ahead and do that? And then we'll come back with the questions, and then we'll go to Michael and Barbara. So you had 2 or 3 points you wanted to be sure and make. Let's have them.
Sure. So I think the most important point to make about Impact 100 Global, the parent or umbrella organization, is that it was started in 2001 by a woman named Wendy Steele. And the model that she created was very original and very simple. 100 women donate $1,000 each and give a $100,000 grant to a nonprofit organization within their community. Impact 100 of Northwest Florida was established, as you said, in 2012 by Michelle Ankers. We used the same model, and in the 9 years, we have impacted our community in such a way that it has transformed the Northwest Florida area. We primarily serve Okaloosa and Walton counties. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is that coming up in March, we're having our biannual global conference. And this year, of course, it will be virtual. However, we encourage anyone who's interested in establishing a chapter in their area to consider registering for this 20th anniversary conference.
So tell us where you said it initially. There were 100 women who all put up $1,000, and you had $100,000, and you give it all away, right? You don't just give away part of it. And you call these transformational grants. Can you tell us why?
Sure. You could give, let's take me. I could give my $1,000 to one nonprofit, and it would do some good, right? They'd be able to get more supplies or keep the lights on or something on that level. However, when we give the $100,000 grant, and usually it's more than 100,000, because if we have, say, 128 women, we give $128,000. Their project must be transformational. So the money cannot be used for salaries. It can't be used for operating expenses. It can't be used for what they're already doing. It has to be for something that is transformational to the organization and impactful on the community. And so we give them all of that money, not all at once, though. We vet them. We look at their financials going back 2 years to make sure that they can handle a grant of that size. We do site visits to the organization. We meet with their board. We meet with the recipients, the people that they serve. And then the members vote on which organization or organizations will receive that grant money. And then they have 2 years to spend it. They're assigned to a board member who works with them over those 2 years. Now, here's the thing that we do, Thom, that is also different from other organizations. We either reimburse the organization for money that they've spent, or we pay the vendor directly when they send us the invoice from the vendor. So we don't just write the organization a check for $128,000.
I think, according to some of our conversations, these nonprofits, these aren't the big nonprofits that get big money from people and that can fend for themselves. These are smaller nonprofits where you really make an impact. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So in our first year, for example, in 2012, we had 128 women who became members. And so we gave a $128,000 grant to an organization called Safe Connections. Safe Connections wanted to buy a house in Crestview, Florida, so that they could provide a safe, welcoming, with cameras and security and toys and rooms for non-custodial parents to be able to meet with their child who was potentially abused or neglected or abandoned. And so they took that $128,000, they were able to buy the house and then transform and remodel the house, and it's still operating today.
Wow. So let me ask you just a couple of quick things before we go to Michael and Barbara. Well, actually, we're doing pretty good on times. So tell me, last year, how much money did you raise and how much did you guys award?
Okay. Last year we had 448 members.
So how many? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's what I was going to ask you.
Which was phenomenal considering we were in the middle of the pandemic, right? We gave away
448 women signed up as members.
And that's right, and gave $1,000 each. So we gave away $448,000.
Wow.
We don't spend any money on admin. We don't spend any money on, printing or a website or any of that. So how do we do that? If we give away all of the money that members donate, how do we operate is usually the question that people ask. Because we have generous women, many of the women are what we call member plus. So they give $1,100 instead of just $1,000 or $1,200. Well, we can take that extra 100 or 200 and we use that to pay for printing, or we use that to pay for, website or all of the operational kinds of things. We also have business partners who want to be involved, and they will make donations in large and small amounts. We use that money for operations. And then there are men who want to be involved.
No,
Yeah. And that question gets asked all the time. Well, why can't we be members? You can't be members, but you can be friends. And so we've had men who will pay another $1,000 to be a friend of Impact 100 of Northwest Florida. And we can use that money again for operations. But we don't have any paid staff. It's all done by volunteers. And most of the women who volunteer, they're volunteering their professional expertise. We donated strategic planning to the organization last year. And so Best Girl facilitated a strategic planning process. We have an accountant who is a member, and she donates accounting services every year. We have members who are attorneys, and they donate legal services in establishing the organization.
Let me say this. I know several of the at least 2, 3 of the men who and they are, like me, very proud of what you guys do. And, so we are in your corner, and we are your cheerleaders. So, okay.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
So let me bring in Barbara Wallace Edwards here. Barbara's probably got a couple questions for you.
Hi,
I
Barbara.
do. Hi, Joyce. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Great. I'm doing well, thank you. And I have to say, I'm totally impressed with Impact 100 and what you're doing there in your local area. That is very impressive. And I do have a couple of questions for you. Looking at your website, it talked about the Next Gen program and also your Evergreen programs that you have there. Can you explain that for our viewers what that is? Because I thought it was very, very interesting.
Absolutely. So there are younger women who are just starting out in their professional careers, and they may not have $1,000 that they can donate all at one time. And so again, we have very generous members who are willing to sponsor a younger woman. So if you are between the ages of, I believe it's 21 and 39, you can apply to be a Next Gen member. And if your application matches with a donation from a member, then in your first year you pay $500 and the member pays $500 for you. In your second year, you pay $750 and the member pays $250 for you. And then by your third year, you'll pay the full $1,000. And the thinking behind that, Barbara, is that it gives you time during the year to save your money so that by the time April rolls around, you have enough to pay for your membership.
Yes, that is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
The Evergreen program we established so that we would have a better idea of the minimum amount we would have for grants each year. So if you're an Evergreen member, you are basically saying, I will be a member of Impact 100 every single year. You don't have to ask me. You don't have to bother me. You don't have to send me repeated messages asking me to renew, because I'm telling you that I am evergreen. I will always be a member of Impact until I tell you otherwise. And so those are members we know will be returning year after year.
That's great. That is absolutely wonderful. Thom, were you got to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, and I think the other thing that's important is this is a year-round process.
Yes.
And so most of your members, your women, have jobs or businesses or what have you. And so this isn't just to give away the money. This is to be totally involved.
Yes.
Yes, and you can do nothing more than pay your $1,000 for membership And don't do anything else until the annual meeting when you show up to vote on the grant recipient. You don't have to be on a committee. You don't have to be on the board. You don't have to go do site visits. You don't have to do anything at all. You can write your $1,000 check and do nothing else. However, if you want to be involved, we have member recruiting events from January until April. We have member socials during the summer. We have site visits and area focus review for the grant applicants during the summer. You can be on a standing committee. You can be on the board. So the nice part about Impact is that we'll invite you to be involved when you become a member. We won't bug you about being involved when you become a member. And so you can do as little or as much as you like.
I think that's important because you do have a lot of women who may have the financial resources but don't have the time to invest in other activities. So that's great. One of the other questions I have, Joyce, is I noticed that there are chapters all around, but there's one chapter in Alabama, none in Georgia, which is very interesting. So how do we get the word out other than having you on the show, which is wonderful? We have viewers in all states, but how can other women in other areas get involved if they would like to? Well, how can they start chapters in their particular area if they're interested in starting a chapter there?
Absolutely. So if you go to Impact Council, the Impact Council's website, and it's Impact 100 Global if you do a search for it, there is information on that website for how to establish a chapter. And right now, we have 61 chapters around the world. There are chapters, of course, in the United States, as well as the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. The impressive thing about the other chapters, Barbara, is that since its inception 20 years ago, Impact Global has contributed and donated $80 million in the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And we're going for, our goal for this year, our 20th year, is to reach 100 million.
Wow, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for what you're doing. That's great.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, let's get, you're making an impact. How about that, huh?
We're doing our best.
Great. Yeah.
Let's get Michael Walker in here with a couple of questions. And
well, good morning, Joyce. How are you this morning?
Hi, Michael. I'm well. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you again, too. And congratulations on Impact 100 and all the things that you're accomplishing there. It's very good. I have a couple questions. The first one I have is of a personal note. I'm kind of interested in knowing, why is it whenever I see your name, it's all lowercase? You don't have a capital J or a capital G. Explain that to me. How do you get away with that?
How much time do you have? So the short story is high school English class, sophomore year, we were studying poetry during that particular semester, and I fell in love with the writing style of E.E. Cummings. I loved the way he threw convention out of the window and used the letters and words the way he wanted to express the emotion of the poetry. So I stopped capitalizing everything. Well, Sister Mary Lucia, my English teacher, didn't care for that very much. And so she instituted a series of punishments to try to make me use capitalization, which, as you and Barbara know me well, didn't make any difference. So she sent for my mother, and I was on the verge of failing English. And my mommy proposed a compromise that if I used capitalization for everything else, then when she took me to get my Social Security card the next month on my birthday, I could fill out the form lowercase and sign the form lowercase, legalizing my name, right? Because that's my first legal document. I, of course, wanted to know if our family attorney said that that would make it legal and that nobody could make me capitalize it. But that was what we ended up doing. And then Mommy had to argue with the woman at Social Security who said, but that will legalize her name. She can't sign it that way. She can't fill it out that way. So my name's been legally lowercase since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And the computer will correct it. If you,
Really?
you type it in lowercase Joyce, and the computer corrects it, and you got to do it again.
Yes.
So
it will, and people correct it as well. That it's really funny. It's like people don't think that I know how to spell my name, and so I'll get, I've gotten papers back from teachers where they've crossed my name out and written it in capital letters, and yeah, it's always funny.
You're just not a conformist, are you? You will not conform.
Not at all.
No. I love it.
Okay, great. Another question I have for you is that you've been an elected official. Tell me about that. And were you part of an insurrection or overthrow or decertifying any votes? Since you're not a conformist, you probably did that.
I'm not, and I didn't. However, I did run a non-conforming campaign. I refused to make those plastic yard signs because I drive a Prius, and to me that would be hypocritical. I'm going to create more plastic to go into a landfill. So I didn't do that. I didn't do those, yard billboard signs. What we did a bookmark. And on the front of the bookmark, we put why I was running. But on the back of the bookmark, we put major phone numbers for the city so that, people could contact the library or the water or sewer, whatever it was. So it was something that they wouldn't throw away, that they would be able to keep in use even after the election. And then we did electronic billboards. In fact, I think, Thom, weren't we the first candidates to use that method for advertising?
Yeah.
And then the third thing we did, we ran newspaper ads called Friends of Joyce. And so people who wanted to have their name added to the ad could let us know. And each time we ran it, we would add more and more names for Friends of Joyce. And that was the slogan, be a friend of Joyce.
The other thing did was the little yellow buttons, like the little smiley face, but the little yellow buttons, and you could attach it to your clothes, and it said Friend of Joyce. And so you had people walking around all over town with the little yellow buttons on that said Friends of Joyce. But I'll give you a couple of stories. Another quick story was talking about the electorate and how smart or not smart they might be in terms of who they vote for and why they vote for them and so on and so forth. We went to areas where people who had not voted, had showed up voting in any election in the last 5-10 years, whatever. And so we're at this one house, and the young lady is talking, and she said, who are you going to vote for? She said, well, I'm going to vote for so-and-so and so-and-so. And we said, well, why are you going to vote for that person? Said, well, as I drive around town, I see they have the most signs. And so you go for the one who's got the most signs. So y'all remember that. You go for whoever's got the most signs, man.
Okay. All right. Follow the masses then.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. Back to Impact 100. You mentioned that you have 100 women that contribute $1,000, and then you give that $100,000 grant. And particularly if it's a startup chapter, or the question is, if they do not have 100 women to contribute $1,000, do you wait until that chapter gets $100,000 built up before you do it? Is that how that works?
Yes, it does. Interestingly, and Wendy Steele would have to correct me, But I don't believe that there has been a startup chapter who has not been able to give at least that first grant of $100,000, Michael.
Okay.
I think because there's something about when you give your money, you donate to a cause, you're not always sure how that money is going to be spent, right? If you give to the American Cancer Society or you give to AIDS, wherever it is that you give, you're not sure how it's going to be spent, and you're not sure how much of it actually gets spent on, cancer research or AIDS research or aid for AIDS patients. You don't know how much of it is going to operational expenses or someone's salary. With Impact 100, you know that every single dollar is going to that organization. And none of it is being spent for anything other than that organization. And you know the project that organization is trying to accomplish. And so there's a comfort, at least for me, there's a comfort level in knowing where my money is going and that all of my money is going there.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Let me, I think we're doing well on time, so I'll come back to you guys, Michael and Barbara, for one more question. But let me ask you this, Joyce. Tell us a happy story. Has there been one of those stories that just brought tears to your eyes, that where you know that what you're doing is going to transform someone's life?
Absolutely. And I would say locally, the Arc of the Emerald Coast. It's an organization that works with adults who are physically challenged or mentally challenged. And their grant application was to build an aquatic center, because locally in the Okaloosa and Walton County area, there was no place for an adult or child who was in a wheelchair to be able to go swim, because there was no way to get them down into the water or get them out of the water once they got in, or to cradle them safely in the water as they were learning how to swim. And so the Arc of the Emerald Coast, their grant application was for an aquatic center for the physically challenged. And there wasn't a dry eye in the room when they were doing their presentation, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And they received their grant, they built their center, and they call it the Impact 100 Aquatic Center at the organization. When the grant applicants, as I said, they go through a very thorough vetting process. We do a grant workshop teaching them how to fill out our application. And we've been told by federal organizations that our grant application for Impact 100 as a whole is the most rigorous one that they've ever seen. And we do a 2-year review of financials. We have those accountants who are members on the finance committee, and they thoroughly vet to make sure that those organizations are financially stable. And then the ones who are selected by the committees to go forward as grant finalists, we call them, they make a 5-minute presentation to the members, usually in October or November. They may not use PowerPoint. They may not use any visuals. They can stand up and tell their story, and they have 5 minutes, and we time them and we cut them off.
Okay. Okay, where are we? Y'all caught me talking to Emily then. Okay, Barbara, you have anything else you'd like to ask? We've got a little bit of time here.
Yeah, I just want to say, Joyce, that the model that you all use is probably different from anything I've ever seen before. I've had the opportunity to work with several nonprofit organizations as well as several groups such as yourself, Junior League, but here in Birmingham and other organizations. And the model that you use is unconventional, and I love it because you need to follow where how they're using the money. And, because you never know. You write a check and they tell you they're doing one thing with it, and they may or may not. So the fact that you all have a member assigned to that organization to work with them, you do the 2-year review of their financials is absolutely wonderful. And then, make sure that they're going to use it for the project that they say they're using it for. That's just wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing there.
You're welcome, Barbara. And because things happen, right? And so if something happens and the grant recipient must make an adjustment to their original project, that has to come back to the entire board. So it's not an okay approval that their grant liaison can give alone. It has to come back to the board. The board discusses it, researches it, talks about it, and then votes whether to approve that request or not. And sometimes we've said no because now you're talking about using the money for salaries, and it's not a new position. So it could be used for salaries if you're creating a new program and that new program requires a new position. However, if that's the case, then you need to also show how you're going to sustain it after your impact grant runs out.
Right.
I think it's also important.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's also important to let people know as they're thinking about establishing a chapter in their area or becoming involved with a chapter that's already in their area. If you think about the fact that as of April of last year, we had $448,000 that we weren't going to start to distribute at least until after the voting in November. So that's several months that money just sits there. Several years ago, our board decided that we would be good stewards of that money, and we invest it. So we purchase short-term, 6-month, sometimes 90-day CDs, so that we can then use that interest again to do even more transformational projects for the organization. So if something comes along that we need to do that's operational in nature, we have those monies in addition to the donations that we receive, and it keeps the organization financially solid.
I've often said to you that, you guys represent 2 counties, which could be problematic in a lot of instances. Some of the guys, I said, do you think guys could do this? I said, no. We'd want to cut a deal with somebody and, well, let's let so-and-so in because, that's my friend. We play golf.
Right.
And, so it is very refreshing. And like I said, something I'm very, very proud of. So, Joyce, you have anything else? We've got a few more minutes here. Actually, we got I'm gonna go to something else. But you got anything else you want to share with us regarding the impact?
I would. Let me tell you another story of one of our grant recipients. In the Defuniak Springs area, there's an organization called Chautauqua Healthcare. It's a group of physicians and dentists and other health providers who came together to provide free health care to people who needed it. A couple of years ago, they submitted a grant application, and they ended up being the grant recipient. And their project is an inpatient drug rehabilitation facility for pregnant and postpartum women. Because as you know, if you can provide intervention during the early stage of the pregnancy, and then certainly after the pregnancy for the mother and the child, you have a less likely case of the child being born to addiction or the mother continuing the addiction. So they built a 15-bed facility so that they can run their program in a safe, clean, healthy environment for those mothers and their babies.
Oh, that's awesome. It really is.
It is.
Barbara, Michael, you got anything else? Either one of you?
Yes. One last question, Joyce. When a chapter donates a $100,000 grant to a nonprofit, and in most instances, a lot of people that are doing philanthropy, they end up with a seat on the board of directors of that organization that they support. Mm-hmm. So my question is, the chapters, when they pick a nonprofit and they support it, do they get an opportunity to sit on a board of directors or an advisory role or something like that going forward?
No, it's not a.
That's how men do it.
That's right. It's not. And Michael, when you serve on what we call our area focused review committees, the ones who review the applications and eliminate the applicants to come down to those 2 finalists, there are 5 categories: arts and culture, education, environment, recreation and preservation, family, and health and wellness. And so you pick an area that you're interested in to serve on that area review committee. When you sign up to be on that committee, you also have to sign a non-competition agreement, a disclosure, if you will. And you have to disclose any boards or organizations that you belong to. If one of those organizations has applied for a grant on the committee that you're saying that you want to serve on, you may not. You have to select another committee. So you can't be on a committee that's going to review a grant for an organization that you're on the board of. And so we make sure that it's really clean, that there's no murkiness, there's no fuzziness, there's no persuasion or anything like that if you're going to serve on one of the area review committees.
Okay. Thank you. Thom, what do you got against men? Man, we have to have checks and balances. Come on, man. You're dogging us out this morning.
No, I just think that probably what I'm saying is true. So, it's I'm all for the guys. But I just think I do think that to take the money and put the entire money behind the project and not get caught up in the what do I want to call it? Buddyism or what have you is just pretty amazing and pretty phenomenal. So that, of course I'm for the guys, but I don't know if we could do that.
Because we want checks and balances.
Right.
At least that's what we call it.
Well, and Michelle Anchors, who initiated the Northwest Florida chapter, says, and I love this because it's so very true. She said, women do a lot of good with not a lot of fuss.
Well, anyway, so hey guys, I'm with you. We're cool. But it's a good thing they're doing, and we will certainly want to encourage them, and we want them to keep doing it. I think we got some comments. So Emily's going to put the comments up, and I'll tell you who's commented about what. Uh, I, I think they're mainly about your name. It says Gary Jenkins out of Chicago. Gary says, I never heard that explanation of the writing of your name. I love it. And
Hi,
he's known you
Gary.
for a long time.
Yes.
Lori Wallace. Lori says, I love it. Joyce Gilly Gossam. And they're all writing it lowercase. So
Oh, that's great.
Becky Davis Gibson. Hey, Becky. Becky says, hi, doctor, and with the little heart there. So
Hi, Becky.
Sharon Jenkins says, that is awesome. Sharon's out of Chicago as well. And Sharon also said, it's wonderful that generosity and accountability are partners. And I think that's the point that I was
Absolutely.
trying to make. And Sharon, thank you
Yes.
for making it for me. But generosity teamed with accountability, that has really registered with me and says a lot to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Marvin's out of Austin. No, not Austin, Texas. San Antonio, Texas. He says, Joyce for president of the USA.
No, thank you.
Yes. My vote.
I don't know. People get too angry these days. Lori Wallace says, I love what this organization is doing and applaud for the awesome work you have done and are doing. So I think
Thank
it's
That's
great.
my sister.
So,
Tom.
oh,
That's
is
my
it?
sister out of Mobile. She's
Oh,
a regular viewer of the
from
show.
Mobile. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
There was one other thing I was going to ask, and then it just slipped my mind. But Barbara, you got anything else you want to comment on?
I just want to say again, thank you, George, for what you're doing. It's wonderful to hear, impact what the impact you're having on the community there and across the world. May be interested in looking to starting a chapter here in Birmingham. So I'm going to look into that and see how many of my friends I can get possibly involved and interested, and we'll get back with you.
That would be wonderful, Barbara, and we'll be happy to help you. An
Thank you.
interesting comment, as small as Pensacola, Florida is, right, the Santa Rosa and Escambia County area,
Yes.
it is globally the largest chapter. They have
Wow.
over 1,000 members, and so every year they give away $1 million.
Wow. That's incredible.
Wow. Amazing. Wonderful.
And you're able to do it, and I'm sure there are, I guess, hiccups, things that you need to look out for, but I just think it's you guys are to be commended. So you ladies are to be commended. So anybody got any final things before we go? Joyce, you got anything? Michael, you go ahead.
I just want to say, Joyce, thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I certainly appreciate it, and it's very inspiring.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. I enjoy it. I love it. I believe in the organization. When Michelle came to me and said, I need to tell you about this group and I need you to become a part, sign me up. And I save my $5 bills all year long so that by the time April rolls around, I have enough. And that's how I pay my $1,000, because I didn't want to take away from the other organizations that I was already supporting.
Cool.
Yes, it's great.
And when she explained it to me, it's like, what? You gonna do what? But it's been wonderful, and we thank you for coming on and sharing it with us. And how do people contact you if they're interested in starting something or finding more information? Again, give us that contact information again.
Sure. We are impactnwf.org. So you can go to that site and we have a contact us page. You can also send me an email at that same impactnwf@impactnwf.org.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you. It was great. It was wonderful. We appreciate it. And I think, let's see, where are we now? Let's see. Let me close out here with my closing comment. Last week's closing comment was from Gandhi, and it basically says we must, and I think this is appropriate for impact, we must be the change we wish to see in the world. And I'm going to add another comment to that. And I think these women certainly exemplify that. It says, when much has been given, much will be required, more will be required to whom more has been entrusted. So I want to thank everybody for this. It was wonderful. I want to thank Joyce, certainly Michael, Barbara, Emily, and Sean for everything that they do. That's the show. I want to thank our sponsor, Best Girl. If you're interested in having your business to be a sponsor of the show, get in touch with us at tom@bestgirl.com. We're going to thank Emily, the communicator, our producer. Thank Sean Jones, the organizer. It's a wrap. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe, and peace.